Jarome Iginla could play the game any way that he wanted. He was a prototypical power forward with a howitzer of a shot that helped establish him as a perennial goal scorer. Iginla could unleash that just as quick as he'd barrel straight through an opponent or dish the puck to an open teammate with pinpoint accuracy. Over a 20-year NHL career, he scored and fought and led his teams with an infectious determination. Everything Iginla did was done with consistency. The scoring, the assists. He twice netted 50 goals in a season, twice earned Rocket Richard trophies, was named league MVP by his peers. And alongside a crowded trophy case, Iginla finished his Flames tenure scrawled throughout the franchise record book. By the numbers alone, he's among the legends of the game. And this doesn't take into account the gold medals he brought to Team Canada. He was an absolute force, a goal-scoring wrecking ball, one of the greatest to ever play the game. But when he hung up his skates, he did so having never hoisted the cup. So how did Jarome Iginla finish his career untitled? We'll start with an obvious statement. Hockey is very much a team sport. That's why greats like Ray Bourque and Alexander Ovechkin came oh so close themselves to this unfortunate fraternity. But that also means championship opportunities can come from less expected sources. Iginla made his professional debut directly on the championship path. But the fact the 1996 Flames eagerly welcomed an 18-year-old who not only played the previous night, but arrived in Calgary 90 minutes before puck drop, they needed some help. While he alone couldn't prevent the sweep, Iginla's 2 points in 2 games earned him some praise. His coach came away impressed, but despite having a lack of imagination, he'd be correct for now. This would be Iginla's only taste of the playoffs for another 8 years. But it's a stretch of time that only made what's to come even more spectacular. Operating in a small Canadian market in the 90s was tough. With a weakened Canadian dollar, no luxury tax, limited revenue sharing, team finances drastically impacted rosters. Putting their personal finances aside, ownership struggled to justify retaining talent. Even when it was someone like Theo Fleury, Calgary's all-time leading scorer. He wanted to stay, but Fleury knew the reality of the situation, and in hopes of getting anything in return, Calgary shipped off the last remnant of their 1989 Cup-winning team. The reason this specific deal is worth mentioning is that not only did Iginla's chances take a hit when he lost an extremely talented teammate, it was also a beacon illuminating the dire straits in Calgary. How could there be hope that the Flames wouldn't let Iginla bolt at his first opportunity for greener pastures? It was a cycle of talent that forced the most optimistic to believe in luck. But as the faces around him changed, Iginla entered his prime. Following his first 30-goal campaign, Iginla led the league in 2002. His connection with Craig Conroy gave them a 1-2 punch on offense, and while the team struggled to translate that into wins, the Flames found a coach who would make sure Iginla's efforts didn't go to waste. Darryl Sutter's name was synonymous with playoffs, which excited Iginla. While it wouldn't happen that year, April still provided a spark for their future. Sutter was named GM in addition to his coaching duties, and he quickly set out to remake the Flames. The results were immediate, but possibly even more painful. Sutter turned over a third of the roster, focusing on a bigger, tougher group to battle their way into the playoffs. The remodel led to internal optimism, and Iginla made the team's expectations pretty clear. But the start to the 2003-2004 season looked all too familiar. 6 wins in their first 16 games, plus an injury to Calgary's starting goaltender, meant Sutter had work to do. He traded for the goalie who was backing up the backup in San Jose. Miikka Kiprusoff had been a well-regarded prospect, but his pro career had just gotten off to a slow start. With a change of scenery, things didn't just click, though. Kiprusoff turned in an all-time great season. An NHL record goals against average was a far cry from what the Flames allowed over the first 7 seasons of Iginla's career. So, when Iginla once again led the league in goals, the wins piled up. They were the stars of a team who had bought into Sutter's mindset. Hard-nosed, defense-oriented, each piece working together with their captain paving the way. And while the monumental task of just reaching the playoffs was achieved, Iginla wanted to make some noise. It began against their division winner in Vancouver. Iginla gave Calgary 2 shots at advancing with a Game 5 game winner. Then, when pushed to the brink in double overtime of Game 7, Iginla fired a shot that Martin Gelinas followed up on to take the series. For the first time since claiming the Cup in 1989, the Flames made it out of the opening round. Their prize? The President's Trophy-winning Red Wings. But that turned out not to mean much. Kiprusoff shut Detroit out in Games 5 and 6, and Iginla put one on net in overtime, which rebounded its way to Gelinas, who again put the series away. They had an even easier time in the conference finals as Iginla continued his tear. Having faced 3 division champs, Calgary made a miracle run straight into the Stanley Cup final. All that was left was to get past the Lightning. The series started in familiar fashion for Calgary. The teams traded the first 2, Iginla had a Gordie Howe hat trick in their Game 3 shutout, then the Lightning evened the series up at 2 apiece. That Game 4 loss for the Flames had a bit more to it though. Nikolai Khabibulin turned in a great performance for the Bolts, but the guy Calgary faithful were talking about afterwards was the ref. In their eyes, Carey Fraser was wildly inconsistent and gifted Tampa a 2-man advantage, which led to the Knights' lone goal. It continued in the third when Craig Conroy was either hooked or took a dive, but either way, Fraser swallowed his whistle. Then, late as the Flames scrambled to even it up, Ville Nieminen boarded Vincent Lecavalier. Fraser, who was right there, didn't call anything. But from across the ice, his partner Brad Watson raised his arm for what they decided to be a major, leaving Calgary shorthanded the rest of the way, essentially killing all hope of a comeback. Sutter didn't see the case for anything more than a 2-minute penalty. And when Nieminen, one of Calgary's top defensemen, was suspended for the hit, his coach called it part of a league conspiracy against the Flames. But while the players agreed the penalty shouldn't have been a major, Iginla also pointed out that they were unhappy with more than just the officiating. Going against a goalie who was locked in, they didn't take advantage of the chances they got. All in all, it left Iginla feeling more disappointed than he was used to, but Game 5 helped make up for things. The Flames once again found themselves in overtime, and Iginla once again set up the game winner to guarantee Calgary 2 shots at hoisting the cup. While the team was excited, Iginla remained realistic about what was in store, even if he forgot the Flames' penchant for needing more than just 60 minutes. But in the third period of a tight Game 6, it looked like they'd end it in regulation. As Gelinas rushed the net, he used his skate to direct the puck at the pads of Khabibulin. In a bang-bang play, the puck shot out and everyone carried on. But it was far closer than anyone on the ice realized. With the cleanest angle, one could make the case that the puck was in. But there was no stoppage, no review, and no more scoring until a second overtime. Tampa's goal counted and forced a Game 7. The Flames' reactions ranged from Sutter electing not to dwell on it, to Iginla feeling bummed but if they missed it, they missed it, to Nieminen, who, well, felt very certain the Flames should have won the cup right there. But even though the potential cup-winning goal wasn't reviewed, Iginla unsurprisingly looked at the brighter side. Game 7 to win it all was something special. It was also exhausting. It marked a record 26th playoff game in the span of 61 days. They'd seen 7 of their first 25 go to overtime, one to double, another to triple. They were banged up, running on fumes, and with it all on the line, Calgary came out flat. The Flames managed just 3 shots in the opening period, and didn't reach double digits until there was less than 10 to play. So when the Lightning went up 2, it felt insurmountable. Conroy cut the deficit in half, and Calgary found some extra juice to run on, but it wouldn't be enough. Calgary's miracle ride came to a disappointing end. Iginla was left to reflect on his inability to get it done for Calgary when they had a chance to win it all. Held without a shot in Game 7, it was going to sting a while, understandably so. But he had the support of an entire city, and his mother put what Calgary was feeling best. This team would be back. It felt like this was just the beginning. Their defense of the Western Conference got off to a rough start. A lockout spoiled any chance at momentum, and on top of that, Calgary once again had to watch players capitalize on their success. Those who departed were replaced with aging free agents, but that's only to say this team was different. Once hockey came back in 2005, Kiprusoff continued his excellent play, and one of the new faces gave hope for their future. Iginla again led the way in scoring and proved their Cinderella run wasn't a fluke, with an even better regular season record. As the 3 seed, they were a favorite to represent the West once again. Just like old times, in the opening round the Flames swapped wins with the Ducks. Iginla put together a Game 4 comeback with an impressive 2-goal third, but Calgary couldn't finish it off in overtime. As the series went along, an ongoing injury finally shelved Jean-Sebastien Giguère, and facing Ilya Bryzgalov in net, the Flames struggled down the stretch. Despite again having 2 shots to close it out, Calgary's offense couldn't find its rhythm. They managed a single goal across games 6 and 7. Iginla again fell quiet. After 5 goals through the first 5 contests, he managed just 1 shot in each of the final 2 games, and their season ended with a shutout. What made that early exit even more painful was every opening round matchup in their conference was won by the lower seed. A potentially easier path to the final was missed. Then a second blow came when the man who gave Iginla his best chance at a cup stepped down as coach. Although Sutter remained in Calgary as GM, the front office couldn't keep the Flames from coming out flat a year later. They did what they could to resuscitate an up-and-down 06-07 season, like bringing back Iginla's old center, but in a very competitive Western Conference, they dropped to the 8th seed. Offensively outmatched by Detroit, Iginla did what he could to even up the series, but couldn't do it all himself. Despite scoring Calgary's lone goal in Game 6, Detroit held Iginla to 2 shots in a game requiring double overtime. That result added to an ongoing theme. Even a year later, when the offense around Iginla picked up and Calgary pushed a superior Sharks team to 7 games, they couldn't recapture the magic of 2004. Against Chicago in 2009, back-to-back blowouts capped off what would be the final playoff appearance Iginla made as a Flame. After reaching the final against Tampa, they failed to win another playoff series. Sutter had helped Calgary find talent to surround Iginla with. Iginla did an amazing job making those around him even better, but these teams went wherever their captain went. And as early exits turned into playoff misses altogether, Iginla's future was elsewhere. His name was scrawled throughout Calgary's list of records after 16 years with the franchise. But it was time for some change, and that meant time to chase cups. Just 2 years removed from another 40-plus goal season, Iginla was a highly sought piece for teams making a run. As the 2013 trade deadline approached, for a moment everyone was convinced Iginla would join an already stacked Boston team. But the even more stacked Penguins swooped in. Pittsburgh was on a 13-game winning streak. They were favorites to win the Cup. Iginla could play alongside some fellow future Hall of Famers. So, Pittsburgh won him over. And the decision looked good. He helped bolster what became the league's top offense. The Penguins easily cruised to the conference's best record. Iginla reached the playoffs for the first time in 4 years, but more importantly, represented just part of a juggernaut. In their opening round, Pittsburgh's offense bulldozed the Islanders, while the defense notched a pair of shutouts. It went even smoother against the Senators, as they closed things out in 5 with some massive displays of firepower. And that led to not only Iginla's second appearance in the conference finals, but a chance to play the team he spurned. It didn't start great. The Penguins were shut out on their home ice, but having scored 13 goals in their 2 previous games, there wasn't much concern. Eliminate mistakes, keep taking shots, hope for friendlier posts. Iginla was confident they'd right the ship. But 2 nights later, they were never even in the game. Boston scored 28 seconds in and didn't look back. Pittsburgh's top offense struggled, at one point going more than 12 minutes between shots. While Iginla focused on the team needing to bring the fire he knew they had, Boston focused on not letting anyone forget what could have been. But Pittsburgh found that fire, and had their best game yet. After using Iginla on the left side, he was moved back to the right wing where he'd spent most of his career. It helped as they found their lanes and peppered Tuukka Rask with 54 shots. But only one made it past the Boston goalie. Power plays had fueled Pittsburgh through the first 2 rounds, but in Game 3 they came up empty on 6 attempts. On a night where Boston's offense also had little left in the tank, the netminders stole the show and dragged things into a second overtime. The Bruins ended it there. Despite being in a serious hole, the Pens continued to lean into the fact that they were getting chances that could have fallen the other way. That mentality was held despite Iginla, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin all being kept off the series scoresheet. This was the same team to average over 4 goals per game in the opening rounds, but once again with the series on the line, you wouldn't have known it. Pittsburgh managed to hold the Bruins' offense largely in check, but Boston got all they needed. Rask gloved Iginla's last-second shot to complete the sweep, a fitting end to a series dominated by the Bruins goalie. He had shut the Penguins out for the final 127 minutes of the series. On what had been the most talented team of Iginla's career, he was left with little to say. His could-have-been teammates on their way to the final had a few more thoughts, like using Iginla's decision as motivation. But after watching Boston reach the final, Iginla got a do-over in free agency. And it didn't seem like anyone held a grudge. Just like in Pittsburgh, this was a perfect fit. He stepped into the first line and put up his 12th 30-goal season. With an offense and defense near the top of the league, plus the top record in the league, on paper the 2014 Bruins looked like Iginla's best shot yet. But rivalries throw everything out the window, and after a fairly easy opening round against Detroit, Boston had to deal with their best friends from Montreal. Game 1 showed what fireworks these teams were capable of. Montreal carried a 2-goal lead into the third, but Boston managed not 1 but 2 comebacks in the final period to force overtime. With a pair of evenly matched teams, it took a penalty to shift the balance back in Montreal's direction. It set a tone for a competitive series. Although Boston again failed to finish the comeback following a slow start to Game 3, after wins in Games 2 and 4, they came out firing. Iginla scored what would be the game winner that set the Bruins up with 2 chances to advance. And in their first try, Iginla rattled off 10 of the Bruins' 63 shot attempts. The trouble was, none of them went in, whether from Iginla's stick or anyone else's. The Bruins were blanked and had a fair share of missed calls to complain about after the fact. But it was the larger missed opportunity that would be more frustrating. Forced into a Game 7 against a rival, Boston again came out slow. Iginla tipped in a shot by Torrey Krug to cut Montreal's lead in half, but it was all Boston could muster. They didn't look like the team that had won 54 games in the regular season. Montreal capitalized on Boston's mistakes, like a failed clear that led to the Habs' goal barely 2 minutes into the game. It fell on no one in particular. Those final 2 losses were a team effort. But instead of a return to the final, they headed to an offseason filled with questions about the roster. That would be the last playoff appearance for Jarome. Boston's cap situation led him to join Colorado, which looked like a better opportunity than what it became. His last few years added some milestones to his collection, then Iginla's career wound down with the Kings. Hardware littered his time in the league, but Iginla fell short of the ultimate prize. When he left Calgary, George Johnson wrote for the Herald that Iginla departed as the most luminous legend this town has seen. Instead of opting to chase cups in his prime, Iginla gave everything he had to Calgary. It's easy to imagine what that would have meant with a different organization, but at the same time, the Flames were what forced Iginla to find his version of greatness. His legacy is defined by so many things, both on and off the ice. He came immeasurably close to winning a Stanley Cup. Decisions worked against him, droughts filled more of his career than is fair, and honestly, none of that matters. Jarome Iginla finished his career untitled and still goes down as one of the greatest to ever play the game. Thank you so much for watching this episode. It took a lot longer than expected to finish up, so I'm really happy you're able to watch it now. If you want a beef history that ties straight into this, here's Boston vs. Montreal. Or here's more Untitled if you prefer that. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you soon.